given our time. So my name's Ted Schadler. This book, Empowered, answers the question, why do you empower employees? And the answer is you empower employees to solve the problems of empowered customers. Just exactly as Clay was saying, when it's happening out there, you have to find ways to support it in here. When your customers' expectations are rising, your employees' capabilities have to also rise. And your organizational response to that rising customer expectation also has to rise. And content is right at the core of that. Content is the medium of exchange. Content is the way in which people interact with the company, with the processes, with the information that you're trying to reach them and tap them with. So mobile, we believe, is what we call the new face of engagement, systems of engagement. I'll introduce you to that. I'll talk a little bit about what it means to companies. And to do that, I would like to get us started, and we'll probably just stay on the slides rather than flipping back and forth. So your mobile app is now in your customer's pocket, and it's in your employee's pocket. And the question is, what are you going to do? Right? If you've taken web and shrunk it down, if you've screen scraped an SAP or a content management system and tried to cram it into a smartphone or a tablet, not so interesting. What's interesting is you're in your customer employee's pocket. What are you going to do? So it's January 2007. There's no iPhone. There's no iPad. There's no Android. Facebook is 1 year old. Could you imagine the following? 1 billion touchscreen smartphones, 500 million apps, a revolution fueled on the mobile internet, 120 million tablets, RIM toppled from its enterprise throne. Can you imagine Apple and Google as number 2 and number 3 in some markets, most used business brands behind Microsoft? Consumerization as legitimate or even a word. A computer beating the Jeopardy world champion, a website headed for a $100 billion valuation at IPO. 2007, that was 5 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. Could you imagine? All these things are true. There was a perfect storm building. The mouse's days were limited. A lot of these photos are from my colleague Julie Ask, who's here in the Bay Area, so she's got this great cat sequence. Email is becoming your father's Oldsmobile, and it's driving me crazy. I sent my son an email yesterday. He's not responded. He's 13. I'm like, Rory, send me an email back. He goes, no, Dad, I'm not going to do that. It's like, oy vey, how am I going to talk to this kid? The days of little data were waning. The days of big data were rising. And the economics of cloud delivery and the mobile global reach of cloud internet resources put on-prem economics and wireless reach to shame. This is Intuit's data center. It's out in eastern Washington along the Hood River, or Columbia River in this case, I think. It's just an example, but there's like a handful of parking places there to run their entire data center. So the economics are phenomenal. So what was happening is this swirling around of all these advancing technologies. It's why we have such energy now around our business, around our discipline, our profession. We're so excited because things have changed so dramatically and the opportunities to make things better have improved so much. We've now got 1 billion smartphones. We've got 700 people in social networks so we can do all that cool stuff Clay was talking about. We have predictive analytics, things we can predict about the people we want to serve on real big data, cloud delivery reach. It was a perfect storm. And mobile apps are at the center of it all because they are the control point, they are the interface, they're the convenient thing you always have in your pocket, they're the thing you get back in your car, you turn the car around, go back home to get. So mobile apps are at the center of this perfect storm. I could put Box up here for a more enterprise-type setting. This happens to be Dropbox. It's mobile and cloud. This is a blood pressure cuff. Right, from a company called Withings. They also have a bathroom scale. They've turned this thing into a major, major success. Their bathroom scale has 30 mobile apps that take the data from the bathroom scale and turn it into a lifestyle management, one of these tracking things that we saw before. That's mobile and smart. Smart products and mobile go together. Social and mobile. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. So we've got this thing going on, this tremendous innovation at these intersections. But what's really happening is a reformation in engagement. We're thinking differently about how we engage with our customers and our partners. And thanks to John and AIIM, thanks to Jeffrey Moore, we actually have some language that we can use to say, hey, Yeah, we've been making these investments, we've been doing these things, but what we really are doing now is we're changing the way we engage with our customers. We're changing the mechanism and the tools and the capabilities that help us engage more directly and successfully with our employees. So let's stop thinking about all these separate technologies. Let's think about engagement and what our aspirations and goals for engagement are. And they're exposed through mobile apps. So if you kind of take a step back from there, you see we've got systems of record, including most of the content that you collect, clean, upload, and hopefully publish. We've got customers, we've got employees, we've got partners, and we've been building these systems over the last few years we call systems of engagement. Systems of engagement don't host processes and content. Systems of engagement touch and serve people. That's what they do. It's where the good stuff is. It's where the opportunity is. It's where the benefit to the organization is. It's where the loyalty will come from. It's where the productivity improvements lie. So this is a definition. I'm going to read it. Systems of engagement empower customers, partners, and employees with context-rich apps. The application knows where I am, and smart products to help them decide and act immediately in their moments of need. That's the difference. Instead of asking somebody to come to my website, type in a bunch of stuff, and get something, or load up a PC applications and type in a bunch of stuff and get something, they're going to pull out their phone, they're going to click, and it's going to know. It's going to know where they are, who they are, what they want, what they did last time. It's going to make a really good guess as to what they want to do next. It's going to try to address their needs right there in the context of the moment. And that's what's different about mobile engagement, and that's what's different about systems of engagement. So this is an eye chart. I'm not going to spend as much time as I'd like to on it. This is a whole workshop day we could spend. But when we think about what's going on, we've got insight from devices. We've got the systems of record historical perspective. We've got social influence and connections. I'm going to give you an example of this in a minute. You've got all this public as-a-service capability. You've got smart products serving data up in terms of notifications and activity feeds. And you've got this giant brain in the middle that's munging this together and figuring out what to do about it to deliver that context. So we want to deliver a contextual experience. There's a lot of moving parts in this thing. But let's look at an example. This happens to be the TripIt application. Anybody here use TripIt? Yeah, a few of you do. If you don't and you travel a lot the way I do, get it. It starts free. You can pay a little bit of money and get more out of it. It is a really cool mobile app. It knows where you are, and it knows what point in time you are. It knows what your next trip is. It knows what's next. It also pulls in the historical data that you, in this case, have given it by forwarding your itinerary email. So it knows where you're going. And not only that, it can tap into the system of record out there in the airline to know whether that flight is on time or not. And if it's delayed, they'll actually suggest alternative flights. It pulls in this public as-a-service data, things like the mapping. Right? It doesn't have a mapping service. It pulls it in from Google. Social, these are the people I travel with most frequently. It tells me where they are. My family are members of this so they can see. So we've got mobile as the new face of engagement tapping all of these resources in this single application. And then lastly, we've got predictive analytics going on here. Actually, TripIt will tell me if my flight can be changed, even with the change fee, and save me money, because they monitor fares. Tremendously valuable, engaging application, something I go to again and again and again. It's on my homepage of my phone. That's how important it is. So this is just one example. We have lots of others. The Foursquare charts that Clay put up have all this built into it as well. If you look at what Box does with their application, or Dropbox for file sharing, file sync, they have a lot of these things. SharePoint, not so much. Not so much. Don't have a lot of this in SharePoint. OK, so the opportunity is there to engage differently and better and more effectively and more in the moment, in the task, in the context of the person. But it's not going to be a simple thing to get there. And you've got to beware the Jabberwock of success. This is some wonderful data out of Kleiner Perkins. This is the percentage of traffic for these popular sites, Twitter, Facebook, and Pandora, that comes from mobile devices over the last 4 years. It's rising very, very fast as the number of smartphones, touchscreen phones, not old ones, but smart but new ones, rise. This is also true in the enterprise. Salesforce, 60% of what they call their transactions, their activity, comes from mobile devices. And Box reports that 50% of their file syncs and file reads are also from mobile devices. So mobile has this tremendous multiplier effect on traffic and on interaction. And that makes sense. You might come to the web at the end of the day and check something, or you might go to the web and do something when it's convenient, but you might pull out your mobile app and do the same thing 17 times a day, the way you do with email. So there's this rapid ramp up in volume. Now, to give you one example, that USAA does mobile banking, and the line on the bottom there was their original forecast of transactions. Then they reforecast the next second line. They reforecast the third line. The actual number is the blue line on top. So they forecast 20 million transactions. They had 120 million. Their systems kind of melted down. It was a challenge. They had to reprovision those systems a lot. So beware the Jabberwock of success. Because what happens is there's a lot of unintended consequences. We've got, for example, a multi-channel problem. Web, mobile, in-person, call center. It gets worse with mobile. We've got business processes designed from inside out for how we think about the world, not about how our customers or our employees think about the world. You can't take SAP and shrink it down to a mobile, right? It doesn't work. You got to pick and choose those data fields that they want. But you can't take a very complex process and put the whole thing on a tablet. You have to break it down. So that's a real outside-in redesign that has to happen. Infrastructure is ill-prepared for the volume. Middleware, applications, content, security is poorly constructed for engagement. It's much more of a retrieval model than a sort of a push task-oriented model. And then lastly, design. Oops, cut to the chase. Lastly, the design processes are all wrong for it. So this means that mobile's the tail that wags the IT dog. Everything really is going to have to change with mobile. The apps change, the delivery architecture changes for cloud, the design goals become task-oriented, not scenario-based, not process-centric, but task-centric. The development processes become agile, rapid releases. There are plenty of new suppliers in the critical path. The IT org structures have to change. We believe that your profession, that kind of has a bridge between technology and business use, elevates, becomes more important. Information management becomes more critical because that's an asset that bridges between business and IT. So we actually think mobile is going to be the tail that wags the dog that gets people to think differently about the purpose and the role of those content systems. They have to be exposed in a much better, more granular, more accessible way in order to be available on mobile devices. So we believe actually some big changes are happening there. So the choice is yours. It's always good dog, never great dog. So you can be enabling, as I suspect most of you are. In fact, most IT professionals generally are, and good. Or you really can be empowering and be great. You can be out ahead of this curve. So number one, form, and if you don't do it, somebody will around mobility. It's going to happen in most companies. It's happening already. A center of excellence, we call it the CMO, the Chief Mobility Officer, that bridges between business and IT. Mobile is the hook. It's the driver. It's the reason. It's the excuse. It's the budget attractor. Got to do it because we got to do mobile. We got to mobilize our applications. We have to mobilize our content. We have to mobilize everything we do. And that's the excuse. But the goal is engagement. The goal is to redesign and rethink how people consume what we offer so that we deliver it to them in their context, in their pocket. Second, design for mobile first. Design for mobile first. I know, sounds silly, but actually we did a ton of research for this latest report, talked to 60 companies that were kind of on the advanced edge here. And to a company, they said, we tried to take what we had and shrink it down, and it didn't work. We had to start with fresh eyes and figure out how to make it work in that amount of real estate or that amount of real estate with a touchscreen interface. We had to design for mobile first. It then became relatively easy to retrofit web and PC to that design point because we were now thinking about engagement instead of publishing and production. We were thinking about tasks and accomplishing things rather than putting out to have people self-serve things. So we had a different mindset, which meant we had different design goals, we had different middleware, we had different uses of technology. This is one of the hardest things here, this next chart. These are processes in the travel industry, right? So we've got customer loyalty, and we've got the flights, and we've got baggage handling. These are big, thick, heavy, inside-out processes. And when you're a traveler, here's your timeline. Days before, hours before, flight time, hours after, days after. Now, in the days of an agent, you would call, and they would manipulate all these processes. In the days of the web, you would access what you wanted from your desk ahead of time, typically, or from home that morning. And when they added web check-in, that was like, whoo, big breakthrough. But mobile actually makes it much, much more interesting, because mobile forces people to think about the granularity of the tasks, the very specific things that travelers do at every step along that sequence. So they check the status, they check the status, they check the status, they check the status. They book a seat, book a seat, book a seat, book a seat. They check their miles. They compare fares. They're doing this all the frickin' time. And as you can see, a lot of these tasks have to tap multiple back-end systems. So right now in the travel industry, in the banking industry, in the retail industry, the middleware, all those KIX transaction systems, all the ATM middleware, all of the web middleware is being reconceived to be task-oriented. That's hard. A lot of investment there. So we use the term atomize. Atomize business processes to engage people in their context and their moments of need. Think first about who they are, where they are, what they're trying to accomplish. Then map the tasks. Now map the resources against that task. You can't do this very easily with an on-prem. Your data can be on-prem, but you got to have a big Cloud Connect solution. You'll be able to get it out through the firewall in a secure way, to the device in a secure way if you're serving employees. And you have to do it at scale, and you have to do it globally. So you're going to have to use the internet. You don't have to move all the data to the internet, although lots of people are. Big life sciences company is taking their entire CRM for 15,000 sales reps and moving it out to the cloud, out to Salesforce. They got SharePoint. That's where all their content lives. It's on-prem. They've got a beautiful distributed server farm to manage SharePoint. Doesn't work. Not for tablets in a Salesforce. They're going to have to move a ton of that content out to Office 365 just to make it accessible to people that are out on the go. Very, very challenging. We call that the app internet. Design is going to be hard. Application coding and development, big changes going on here. You've got to have the reality of multiple form factors and devices. You've got Android and iPhone and perhaps Windows Phone, RIM perhaps. And you also need to make sure that that works across all the devices you've got. So you've got reach and you've got breadth. Then you have experience. So you have to make very careful choices between native, HTML5, which is web, of course, and hybrid. Hybrid, I think, wins for most of us. Most B2B settings, hybrid wins. And I'm a software guy. That's my bet. This is a list of technologies and suppliers that many of you may know. Some of them are new. Some of them are newer than others. They are all part of what we call engagement platforms. You need a core set of solutions that manage that last mile delivery in the app deployment, the app management, and the applications themselves. And so you may have these in place today. They may need refreshes. You may not have these in place today. And you don't see Microsoft up there right now because they do not have a strategy here as far as I can tell. They have a roadmap, but they don't have a strategy. They haven't thought about engagement. As near as I can tell, they don't care. I love Microsoft for lots of things. They don't care about engagement. They haven't put their self in the shoes of a customer, a consumer, or of an employee. They keep having their heads in where IT tells them they need to be, which is control. So they, as far as I can tell, do not yet have a strategy here. But you're going to have to assemble these platforms. You're going to have to extend the solutions you have. You have to mobilize the content and the collaboration in order to be successful. And you have to think about reach, and you have to think about task orientation. So how do you provision employees in this? Well, design for mobile first is really just the safe. It's going to work. I'm going to deploy a new solution. I got to handle smartphones. I got to handle tablets. PC, yeah, I know how to do that. That's easy. You have to add mobile collaboration capability to every application. So if you've got an application that's on-prem and works great on a PC and doesn't work on a mobile phone, forget about it. Ain't going to be used. So if you go to implement a big social program, I don't know, you're going to update the intranet, and add a lot of activity feeds and social networking expertise location, those kinds of portal upgrades. Really valuable. We spend a lot of our time doing that with companies. We call it the information workplace. If it doesn't have a mobile interface, forget about it. The people that matter won't use it. Get thee to the cloud. Find a way to get to the cloud, or at least Cloud Connect, which means big honking VPN gateways. And BYO can mean LOH, but it's the only way forward. That ship has sailed. We're never going to get back to one platform. Even in the most aggressively controlled industries, it's just not going to happen. And then social tagging, this is where I started, may be the best way to create relevancy to the content. Instead of search, better search reveals more content. Better search doesn't necessarily bring relevance. What brings relevance is that it matters to somebody. They found it, they used it, they liked it, they recommended it. That's the social contribution to content. This is what has to happen, in my view, to all of our content systems. We have to find ways to make them relevant because they're relevant to the people that use them. Now, I'm not a search person, so you could beat me up on that, but that's kind of how I see the world. Thank you.